We need to talk about the real enemy in heart disease, and it's not what most people think. While eggs took the blame for decades because of their cholesterol content, scientists were missing the actual problem: saturated fat. This distinction is absolutely critical for understanding how to eat for heart health. Let me explain what saturated fat actually does in your body. When you consume saturated fat from sources like red meat, butter, cheese, or coconut oil, it triggers your liver to overproduce cholesterol, particularly LDL cholesterol. This is the type that accumulates as plaque in your arteries, narrowing blood vessels and increasing heart attack and stroke risk. It's a direct pathway from saturated fat consumption to cardiovascular disease. There's a landmark study from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition that really illustrates this point beautifully. Researchers had people eat 2 eggs daily, but they controlled for saturated fat intake. When participants ate those 2 eggs on a low-saturated fat diet, their LDL cholesterol actually decreased. But when people ate a high-saturated fat diet without any eggs, they showed no benefit whatsoever. The eggs weren't the problem. The saturated fat was. Now let's look at the numbers, because this is where most people go wrong with eggs. One large egg contains just 1.6 grams of saturated fat. That's actually quite modest. Current guidelines recommend keeping saturated fat below 10% of your total calories. For someone eating 2,000 calories daily, that's a limit of about 20 grams of saturated fat per day. One egg uses less than 10% of your daily budget, but here's the trap that catches people every single time. They don't eat eggs alone. Think about a typical breakfast: eggs cooked in butter, served with bacon or sausage, maybe some cheese melted on top. That butter adds another 2 to 3 grams of saturated fat per tablespoon. 2 slices of bacon? That's another 5 grams. Add cheese and you're up another 5 or 6 grams. Suddenly, your breakfast has 15 to 20 grams of saturated fat, and you've blown your entire daily limit before lunch. The major sources of saturated fat in most diets aren't eggs at all. They're red meat, butter, cheese, coconut oil, palm oil, and processed meats. These are the foods driving up LDL cholesterol and cardiovascular disease risk. If you're eating a burger with cheese for lunch and steak for dinner, the egg you had for breakfast is the least of your concerns. This is why context matters so much. You could eat eggs every single day and maintain excellent cardiovascular health, as long as you're controlling saturated fat from other sources. But if you're eating eggs as part of a diet heavy in animal fats and processed foods, that's a different story entirely. Reading nutrition labels becomes essential here. You need to track saturated fat content, not just look at cholesterol numbers. Make strategic food swaps. Use olive oil instead of butter. Choose fish over red meat several times weekly, and when you do eat eggs, prepare them without adding extra saturated fat. These simple changes can transform eggs from a potential cardiovascular concern into a nutritious part of a heart-healthy diet.